This is good. This is great. And now we are actually also in the, best practices section. And this was also one big reason because I wanted to talk to you because, you have a lot of experience, I think, with many projects, big and small, in this financial institution and corporate level. And one that we outlined already is really like start small and iterate. That's one thing that I also would recommend. But how else do you think about that? Like, what should you do, to make innovation successful?
Yeah, that's a very hard, interesting topic to talk about because there's a many different perspective. But what you see is like you see a lot of companies they do innovation in some kind of separate way, and they create this like speedboat or whatever you wanted versus this old tanker which is moving slowly. So you build something completely new, and then once you think it is a fruitful project, you have created an MVP, a minimal viable or valuable product for your client, and it really is like, okay, we've shown there is a market fit, there's a really interested that companies are, or customers are willing to pay for it. And then basically what happens is like, okay, we just throw it over the fence, and then, okay, now the rest of the organization is supporting it. But they're busy with doing what they're really good at, which is the current processes which create and generate the revenue for the company, which is sometimes completely different way of thinking in both worlds. And you have to be able to connect it and actually make people involved from an early stage. So if you do something, in the new, you need support, some kind of executive sponsorship. But also in the now, the same thing. There's some kind of skin in the game, so they actually have the shared vision and goal again. So they want to collaborate. So you keep each other much more in the loop, and you learn from each other. And once you have, this vehicle which is making new money available, a new revenue stream for the company, you have to think of how do you then make it more in a structured way that it actually can be implemented in the current organization. So you start really thinking about your operating model, what is required, what are the capabilities, and then slowly think about how to do that. And that's an experiment in itself. So you start, this is the way to do it, then you actually start performing it. So you do some kind of measurement and thinking, does it really work? And the moment you really see that it's actually starting to work, then it's more the moment you really to hand it over. So it's really small steps making it, and if you see it as different experiments in itself. First you have to experiment of, is this the value proposition, is there a market fit, and is there willingness to pay? And before you hand it over, then you have this experiment phase. How can we actually be ready so we can really scale it? So you start thinking, what are the conditions in order to make that happen, and experiment with the conditions and see if it really works. And then it's the moment to really hand over to the rest of the organization. But you should still monitor that as well, that it fulfills the expectations, because otherwise you can still turn some of the knobs instead of thinking, okay, now it's set in stone. This is the way we work. Now you can always see that even if you think of the way things, first things seem to be working properly, and then in the long run, unfortunately, that's not the case. So you have to continuously monitor that as well. So the success criteria of the outcomes you want to achieve are extremely important also, because then you have some tool to reflect on. So there are a number of aspects which are important. I think, of course, you have always the support, which are very important from basically both sides, something new, something now, then innovation together with the current world. Then, of course, money, blah, blah, all those kind of things are related to it. It should also really be a shared goal, and therefore there's some skin in the game. People are really willing to make this happen and move forward. And then be patient, but just not thinking, now we have something and just throw it over the fence. No, that requires really a phase in itself to make the connection between the new and the now, the current world, together with the innovation itself. And that's really interesting, also described in a book by Frank Mattes with a book called Now and New.
I wanted to ask you, I'll write it down because I wanted to ask you about that because I saw on your LinkedIn that you were also involved in that, and that is, that's exactly what we're talking about here. So I'll put the link in the description as well, and shout out to Frank Mattes, who is actually almost my neighbor. I think he lives 2 streets further, but this was complete coincidence. It's super funny. But yeah, but these are interesting points.
Do you recognize that from your own experience reflecting on it?
Yeah, absolutely. With my implementations, it was I recognize some points. Absolutely. I just have and this was also a reason why I wanted to talk to you. Like now I can ask all my questions. This is so great. We don't. Maybe there's no answer. Who knows? I completely agree with these quick wins and getting everybody on, or like a small enthusiastic team with C-level support, or better involvement, even, that they really understand the black box, or more than nothing, basically. But like this, and then iterate and look at product market fit and these kinds of things. I completely agree, but I have two questions, basically. One is centered around ROI for internal projects. I find that, I don't know if there's an answer to that. Even I find it very hard. If you make a GPT assistant for, and you can make it for anything. You can make it a lawyer or something. It's you can. It learned on huge amounts of training data, so you can really narrow it down with prompting, or even if you use it for more than once, it makes a lot of sense to, or several times makes a lot of sense to make a custom GPT. But for these kinds of assistants and that help you brainstorm, and sometimes you don't have no immediate output, the ROI calculation for purely internal product, that helps you. How do you even calculate that? How do you justify that? I get the efficiency GPTs, or say we write the article faster or something, the content. But how do you justify things like that? I'm sure that you've been involved in projects like this that were purely internal.
Normally, I like to relate to a certain levelers where executives are being judged on. It's either on money, so you have more income, or you lower down the costs. It's on market, so you have a higher market share, or you have a quicker time to market, or you have exposure, so employee retention, customer retention, or avoidance of risk because you don't comply to certain rules and regulations, and therefore you reach fines. Then you will always find a leveler in order to interest him and to see what is the benefit from it. Because if it's related to efficiency, but you become it's less time. So, and the outcome is something, but it requires me less time. So there's some cost benefit in it. I lower down costs. Or if it helps me brainstorming and doing some experiments easier, because it also helps me with coding. So I have a clickable demo much easier and quicker available, which you then can quickly go to a client or an internal employee. Yeah, then it also helps me with quicker time to market.
So you're basically saying there's always a way to measure things.
It's a certain outcome. You can always put a number or something to it, and otherwise, sometimes it's not required to make it really hard number, but just a feeling. Because people are they always say we're very rational people, we make decisions, blah, blah, but it turns out it's only 4% and the rest is all just emotion. So if you really touch them on emotion, then it also helps.
Yes, thank you. This was basically my second question. Is centered around psychology and these kinds of things. But no, this is good. Because when you let's say you make a risk agent or something like this, to reduce risk somehow, or to make better decisions. And then you can kind of reverse engineer on some data that you have, some past data where that they're fraudulent cases, and would we have been able to find them? Rational. That's completely rational. But in the future, you would never know. You would never know, because you don't know how your life would be without the tool. And this is, so it's a post rationalization with these kind of things. And I'm sure, and I wish I had like a really complicated example where we cannot measure anything now, but I don't. Unfortunately not. But I like this part that the emotion plays in this, because I think that we are fooling ourselves a lot with this kind of thing, that when we start a project, I mean, honestly, I do it because I have a passion for it, and because it's useful. But first of all, there's this, because I like doing challenging and new things and hard things, and I get bored with routine, so I need that to be happy in a way. But when you talk about emotionality in these decisions, like, do you have an example, maybe, or I mean, that you can share, or
That is how I cannot come up with something on the top of my mind.
anything really? I mean, can also be more abstract, but personal is always better.
Now, what you also just described, if I may reflect on the risk and so on, you see that, of course, artificial intelligence is very good to predict maybe something based on past data. But if you want to foresee and make more vision or strategy towards the future, there are so many influences over there which are involved. And also, well, if you think about markets, if you want to sell products, there are so many emotions there also, or developments which you're not in control of. So there, the technology is not really helpful yet. It is a lot of like predicting based on the future. So there's a certain line you can actually see this is most likely the case. But if someone changes the conditions around it, it's completely lost. So also their emotions play a role. For instance, if you think, okay, a company wants to do something, it comes out that they made a mistake or they did something wrong in the past, then all of it is wrong again. So also in the prediction, and in that case, if you think about the return on investment, that makes it really hard, because it's only based on what you have currently to make it really feasible and measurable. And then you have to find it out, okay, how do you feel with it that it bring? And then it's much more, positioning and marketing, branding, all those kind of things come forward. And also,
but did you ever have a project? I mean, internally, you're having some kind of innovation and something that you must be unsure about, because these are the projects that we talk about. But did you ever have something that got green lighted on an intuition or something like that, where you didn't have these tangible numbers, where we couldn't measure accurately, something like this, or does this never happen, or it didn't happen in 2006, and maybe it happens in 2024 because of the progress that we talked about, in
the beginning was more that, okay, the willing was there, then it became more of a structured process, also how you do innovation, but you have certain stage gates, certain proofs that something is really the case there. So you always have, even though it's emotions, maybe it is that you have interviews with clients or employees to find out how it actually resonates with them. And if it actually, you have proof that it resonates with them, basically, that means you have proof that you can actually put down in numbers, because you're not the only one who has this crazy idea, which you think is going to change the world or something. Other people have started believing in it as well, or confirming that thought. So then you have something more tangible. So I think in innovation, there is always something like that. It may be the idea that you have people believing in you is really important, and you can go and make the start. But then afterwards, there is always something which requires some kind of measurement in order to show that it actually brings value one way or another. Doesn't have to be always financial, eh?
I love this. I love this. If I summarize this, and I hope you like this, I just wrote down, if we don't have to measure, if we don't have anything to measure, we measure the emotion. That's what we're doing, right? Like if we, I mean, and of course there are all these professional terms for it, and I have, very respectful, but this is it, like, how do people feel about this idea, like a focus group or something,
Exactly.
right? And you can't explain it why you like it. Maybe it's just interesting. This is something, and they can't explain it either, but they like it. Oh, that would be interesting. I'd try that product, and then you go for it. That is great. That is great. And okay, but I'll ask deeper. No, even deeper. No, I'm sorry. I got to go there. There are some, but then there are some things that are very hidden in these kinds of projects, and that can really bring the quality down. That can really even make them fail. And I think that is a hidden resistance. Something like this, if you have people that are, I mean, for many reasons, and even from their perspective, it can make a lot of sense to resist innovation. If you've done it this way for 30 years and now you're going to retire in 1 year, I mean, Jesus, I don't think I would want that either. I mean, I don't know, but these kinds of things, and then what do you think about that? And can we measure that somehow? Is that even a topic that we can really
Ooh, I don't know if you can measure that.
address?
Hmm. Yeah, because resistance is always problematic because human emotions, what you say, are coming into play. Like you feel like this is not helpful to you, it doesn't bring value to you, so you start thinking like, why should I collaborate? Or the not invented here syndrome. Yeah, it's not for me. Or you're at the later stage, you're involved. Like, why am I not involved earlier? So you should put our concept barriers forward. You can already see that in any kind of meeting or in any project, somebody makes it more essential about him or her. Draws all the intention in it, is not collaborative, only puts up issues or problems or signals things or deviates completely from the main topic. So the time is not spent properly on what you want to discuss. Those things happen in corporate life, unfortunately, in normal meetings related to projects, and of course also in innovation. So how can you measure that? Oof.
Or how do you, I mean, maybe the question is really mean, because I mean, how do you, is there, for example, in your experience or even in the book, is this something that we can address with methodology, or do we have to address it individually? Or because I think this might be one of the hidden reasons that a lot of projects fail or are not as good as they could be, just because someone doesn't want it and they cannot speak out officially or publicly because it would hurt their image or something like that. That is.
That certainly plays a role. What I think is, of course, the shared goal is important. You might have different incentives, but the shared goal is extremely important. So you also always have to find the human connection with somebody to find out what is motivating you. What do you want to achieve? If you are at the end of the year getting a bonus because of X, Y, Z, okay, how can you help them to become successful? And if you really know how to play and turn that knob, so they get interested in it because it brings value to them, then they collaborate with you, and that's starting to do difficult with it. So in the end, it's all about working together and finding the best way together. And that's finding the goal, the incentives, clear rules and regulation, rules and responsibilities. If you do this, you're the one responsible for it. So if that's not the case, I can make that very clear to you. You were the one who were accountable or responsible for this task, for instance. And with it also doing it in small steps, because you show the progress, you show the things that are really working properly, so everybody can benefit from it because you have the example that it actually works. So are there really frameworks? Most likely there are many of these steps which are present and there, but in the end, it all starts with human connection. Because you have to collaborate. And if that's not really possible, there is some issue there. That means as an individual, you're not collaborating properly. As a team, you're not collaborating properly. So the end result is not going to achieve the result you would like to achieve.
Maybe the solution is also to have one or two, I don't know, like project manager, innovation manager, that they're really empathetic and attuned to these kinds of things, that the members are of this team, because I mean, this is something hard and it might fail because of the technology and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure that the psychology is not the problem, or that someone is not afraid to be replaced. So actually, the only way to kind of guard against that is have people, you know, also like you that are experienced with this, and like come on, just let's talk, you know, or not have these kinds of people in the initial team. And I can completely understand the fears, by the way, because I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Even if large language models didn't evolve past today, this will kill some jobs, and it will, or it will at least modify them to
It will
to an
modify
extent
the
that
work. It
that
won't kill
yeah,
them, I think. I will just modify them. And maybe the amount
yeah.
of persons really doing that specific job is less
Mm,
required. So there may be a
mm.
shift in where you actually can work on. Doesn't mean that you lose your job, for instance.
Yeah, yeah, I think it depends. I'm a bit like torn. I mean, I want this to be true, and in a lot of cases, this will be true. You know, like if you're, I made some posts like some weeks back about how the developers work, software developers work will most likely change. That you know that you'll be a conductor more than playing an instrument. That you'll look really at the code base. Does it make structural sense? Can I really maintain it? Is this efficient? Is this the way I want? And you edit the way that I write an article. Basically, I have the whole prototype there, and then I edit and I make the changes, and it makes the change, some bigger changes automatically in my style because I told it to. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this is the ideal version, and this is what I'm also striving for in my projects. But for example, things like stock photography, it just doesn't make sense anymore. I think, like, and a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of artists' work, it doesn't make sense anymore. Um, just because if it's commercial art, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like your wedding, you know, I talked about this also way back in an article. If it's your wedding, I mean, you most likely want the actual moments to be captured and not some abstraction of that moment based on that training data. But like, I have a Vietnamese place that I eat at, and they have done a wonderful rebranding. You know, they're just, this is a couple who runs this place, amazing. They had some food photography taken, new logo, new everything. They had they had a guy with a little studio in there, you know, with the
Okay.
I'm taking pictures while opening hours. It was beautiful, and I thought, basically, this job doesn't exist anymore. That's really, he's doing it, but will he be doing it in 5 years? I don't think so. And then that's also a reality that we need to to accept. I don't know like how it will be in our field, let's say, with much more abstract work. But yeah, sorry to be such a downer, but
No, 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 no.
yeah,
It's true. It's hard to predict what you can actually, what the influence of the technology will be.
yeah,
Because in the past, also when the steam engines came, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, and made a huge revolution, of course. Later on, also the internet, uh, the creation of platforms where you can also benefit from it, but then you created a huge amount of data which you could analyze. So artificial intelligence also started to pop up and become an extremely important player there. But at
mm,
what it can do to us, I don't know, because when the internet came, everybody also thought like, we can exchange more information with each other, and there's just some web pages, very basic information, and now we stream, we talk, we have YouTube videos, and you can create whole new business models around it, which we
yeah,
could not predict
yeah.
a number of years ago. And
Yeah.
maybe it's the same with artificial intelligence. You never know what technology can bring.
Yeah. I I think so too. I mean, I also think that the positive much outweighs the negative. It's just when, yeah, when I see people, I mean, mm, when we do it responsibly at a company with a project, and we know that this will displace someone, or it will really alter their job or something like that. I would say we just take it into account, and this is part of the project actually, because right, if I'm a risk manager and I have this new tool that is super amazing, and then I have more calls with the customer. I get more meaningful flags of my data, and then I say, oh, what's happening here? I see that you are, your seasonal cycle should be down, but it's up. I don't understand. Like, just curious,
Yeah.
like in a wider and then you find out the naughty ones with the fresh air invoices or something like that. It's one of the things. So I see the positive ways out than the negative by far. But you see that this is a huge change, I think, just in that role where you're much more invested in conversing
Yeah.
with a consultant, an AI consultant or something like that. Yeah. Just looking at my notes here, because we covered a lot of ground. I think is there. I have one more thing with these projects, because I think that education is changing a lot too, or will change a lot too, because the thing is that people are using large language models in a very unstructured way now, just because it's so easy to use, and they're just bringing their phone into the organization, and maybe they're even uploading data that they shouldn't, just to make their job easier. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you not? It's quite hard not to, and it's very hard to the performance. When I started my career as a translator. I don't know if I ever told it. I
Nope.
translated software, and it took me, I don't know, like for a big system it could take a year or something like that. I think I could do that in a month now, if at all, with the help of AI and better quality as well, if I could automate it myself. And at universities as well, they use these detection tools and things like that, to say, this is AI generated. I'm not gonna get a good grade.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like my teacher saying in fifth grade or whatever, oh, you're not gonna always have a calculator with you, and he lied. He just didn't know. He was so wrong. What do you think about that? Does it make sense? It's just stuff that I'm thinking about, really, that I also don't have any answer to, and I talk to some people about it, but there's not actually so many people you can talk to about this kind of stuff. Like it's because it's hard and it's new, and and then that's why. But feel free.
But
We
I
can cut.
think in education, we have, at least if I may reflect for myself otherwise, learned a lot about reading something, understanding it, and see how you can actually use it to solve another problem. Sometimes I get the impression, okay, I need to have an answer that I put it in a search, or maybe now I throw it in a large language model and I get an answer back. Solved. So
Yeah.
to get a proper answer back, of course, you have to still formulate proper prompt. So are skills changing? Because you require different types of skills to work in the environment. Is it bad that we lose certain types of ways of working? It's hard to say at the moment. But I think, to really reason properly, to understand large information yourself, to duck to it and see how you can use it to solve another type of problem, to be more creative in that perspective also, that is extremely important, because a model cannot do that. And if you just relate too much, okay, I can write a prompt and I get an answer back. That helped me with everything very efficient, and I don't have to really think. I just do this and this and this. Then it becomes something you automate also again, and you don't keep it to yourself or your control. Yeah, like this creativity. So what I want to say is, like, most likely a lot of things are still required way of
Mm.
doing things. Maybe also we learn new capabilities because they're required of a changing environment.
Mm.
So
Yes.
the educational system maybe needs to change in that perspective also.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very funny because we have a parallel between, let's say, universities and companies, or something like that. And universities are definitely more antagonistic against AI than companies. Companies are more neutral, or we don't know, or where's the ROI, or something like that, or I don't know. Yeah. And with the universities, they have these checkers, and like, oh, I think you used AI for that. And I put my articles through them, and I get completely random results. I think like it's right maybe 50% of the time, which is not enough.
Okay.
It's because then I know the parts that I have written, and where I really didn't have any help, because just wanted to finish it, and it was not really bad, but it was quite bad. And um and I think in both cases, yeah, you're completely right. Our way of working must change, our way of thinking must change, and my, I mean, if I had any stake in it, like, I would advise any company and any university to invite this in, to like large language models and AI, and actually teach people to how to use it in a structured and responsible way. When can I use it, and what do I need to understand about it? Because they're going to do it anyways, and they're going to get away with it, because in a year, or in a couple of months, or you cannot detect anything anymore. On what basis? Even, is is really.
And what you also mentioned, the barrier to use it, it's so user friendly. Anybody can use it basically. Therefore, yeah, it's very hard that it will not evolve and becomes better and better and better. And it's much more user friendly, so it will be used.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that is the making the adoption so large actually.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And just coming back to the, maybe like a summary of the like implementation strategies, and things like that. So I don't know if we forgot anything, or if you want to add anything, like the barriers. There's psychological barriers that we address through empathy. We have a small but dedicated team. We have the C-level support. Definitely, we work for like quick wins. We iterate. Maybe we formulate a moonshot, but we're not holding ourselves, like, we don't pressure ourselves too much, and just, we talk to our clients to see the market fit. We measure their emotion. Very important. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good stuff. No, I like it. We'll try to measure the ROI, even if it is, and we'll follow our intuition maybe sometimes, and do the rationalization later. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, anything that is missing?
How Frank describes it, that you require this gearbox between what you do with innovation and before implemented truly in the organization. Me coming from innovation, the double diamond, and then
Hmm.
normally the people think you can scale. I always draw some kind of circle with a loop like there. You actually require some experimentation as well in order to make it happen before you really can hand it over and scale it up in the rest of the organization. So that is basically the gearbox that Frank also describes and mentions.
Yeah,
So I
and
think that is also really important because that is and in itself also an experiment to see what is required to actually make something fit in the rest of the organization. How does it fit in the operating model to make it really feasible?
but Gearbox is just for the audience as well, who haven't read the book. For example, like, the Gearbox is the tool set that
Yeah,
you
there's
use,
a whole
or.
framework basically helps you to the transition between what is the innovation versus the organization which currently creates the revenue streams and with the whole structured processes.
Mhm. So that is the framework of requirements for innovation. This is how we do things now, and now we are putting the new inside that, or
Yeah,
how.
no, but if you have
Yeah.
something now new, how you actually connect it and make it happen and implement it properly in the now, to make it actually successful. Because a lot of new initiatives, the MVP, they come to a certain stage, but then they have the value of death because then they start failing because they're not really implemented properly in the organization. And there's basically no new revenue stream. They fail to make it really a success afterwards.
Mm.
But that is basically the framework, the gearbox that has been described in the book now.
Okay, so it is really it's a concept that helps us to get everything that we need to make a project a success from the now to the new bit basically.
One of the things we mentioned, of course, is the support, the skin in the game of in that perspective.
Yeah,
an example of the ingredients which are required.
Maybe we can close this with a funny example. I have a good friend who works for a big corporate, and they there's also this thing you just throw money at the problem. That happens in a lot of in a lot of companies. They say we got to do something with AI. It's amazing, you know, and they just bought for $1 million per year, something like that. You can have these really premium plans, right? Like corporate plans with OpenAI, with Anthropic, and I think they bought like a year worth of use for all of them, for all the top models that exist, or the top things, and then they built an application layer where you can access them, you know, like the ChatGPT app, but you can kind of, you know, for your use case, you just select it. And then they said to the employees, they sent an email or something there. Here you have it. Just
use it.
Just use it. I don't know. Just do what you want.
But also you have to guide them properly, what is helping them, how they could use it, etc. That's also extremely important. Of course, playing is extremely important, but the awareness, how you could use it, what kind of things they could benefit from, or how it can bring value to their daily life, their jobs to be done, is extremely important. So it's not just buying something and throw it over the fence again, because that doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, my friend is super happy because he gets to get all the tools for free, you know, and he uses their tools. He can fill out RFIs and RFPs, you know. It's very effective, so it's very geared. The model is geared and trained towards that, and it's fantastic. But yeah, education like this. Maybe something that we forgot. Some closing statement before I say anything, because I think we did well.
We touched upon most of the topics and also the things you wanted to talk about, reflecting in a nice way.
I think so too. Thanks a lot for this conversation. Really good. I learned some new things, like especially that there is the hidden progress. That makes me really happy that you see things improving. You know, how organizations work together to innovate, and that we need education, that we need you know, like this, and that we cannot leave the psychological components, you know, aside. It's super important to select your team carefully, right, and to
it's always the case.
Really have them on board, and actually also the non-technical people for a technical implementation, and the C-level who usually, you know, they might not even but they have to be there, otherwise you just throw it at the people and you will have mixed results.
For sure,
I guess, but it's beautiful, you know. Like, I love working in these small but passionate teams, and thank you so much, Bob. And
you're welcome. It was a pleasure to chat with you again. So
always a pleasure to catch up. We caught up like every year, but finally we recorded it, so that's that's a good thing.
subscribe,
like and subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Okay, take care, and have a good one.
Cheers.